When most people hear 6 months, they think it's too short to make a difference. But in reality, 6 months is a lifetime if used with intention. Half a year can completely transform the way you think, the way you work, and the way you live, but only if you decide to take it seriously. The first thing you need to understand is that transformation doesn't happen because of time itself. Time is neutral. 6 months can pass and nothing will change, or it can pass and you won't even recognize yourself anymore. The difference lies in what you choose to do with it. The goal is not just to improve a little, the goal is to redesign your mindset, habits, and actions so that success becomes inevitable. We begin with clarity. If you don't know exactly what you want your life to look like 6 months from now, you'll waste energy chasing distractions. Clarity is your compass. Write down the exact result you want to achieve and be specific. Vague dreams like, I want to be successful are useless because they give you nothing to measure. Instead, define it clearly. I want to launch my first business. I want to lose 20 pounds and maintain it. I want to pay off $10 in debt. This becomes your non-negotiable target. The second step is building a system, not relying on motivation. Motivation is like the wind, it changes direction. Systems are like the engine, they keep moving regardless of the weather. If your plan depends on feeling like it, you're setting yourself up for failure. Instead, structure your daily routine so that your success is on autopilot. Build the environment, habits, and checkpoints that keep you aligned with your goal, whether you feel excited or not. The third step is discipline through micro commitments. Don't try to change your entire life in one leap. Instead, master small, consistent actions. If your goal is to write a book, commit to writing just 300 words a day. That's 54,000 words in 6 months, enough for a full book. If your goal is fitness, commit to 30 minutes a day of movement. Over time, small actions compound into massive results. The fourth step is to track your progress ruthlessly. What you measure, you improve. Keep a success journal or a digital tracker. Every week, review where you're winning and where you're slipping. This allows you to make small adjustments before small mistakes become big failures. 6 months of untracked effort will not give you transformation. It will give you guesswork. Finally, embrace the identity shift. The real transformation isn't just in the results, it's in who you become. 6 months from now, you shouldn't just have achieved your goal. You should have become the kind of person who naturally maintains it. That is the ultimate victory when your success is no longer something you try to do, but simply who you are. So, here's the truth. You don't need a miracle, a lucky break, or someone else's approval. You need 6 months of intentional, focused, disciplined action. Do that and you won't just change your life, you'll change your future. 5 keynotes of the speech: clarity creates direction, define exactly what you want in 6 months with measurable and specific goals. Systems over motivation, build routines and environments that keep you moving regardless of emotional highs or lows. Small actions compound, focus on micro commitments that stack over time into significant results. Measure to improve, track your progress weekly to stay accountable and adjust quickly. Become the goal, transform your identity so your results are sustainable and natural. Clarity creates direction, and without it, even the most determined effort can feel like running in circles. When you embark on a 6-month transformation journey, the first and most crucial step is to understand exactly what you're aiming for. This is not about simply having a general sense of wanting a better life or more success. Vague desires are like fog on a road. They obscure the path and slow progress. Instead, clarity removes the fog, allowing you to see exactly where you're going and why it matters. It forces you to define the outcome you want in measurable, concrete terms so that every decision and action you take aligns with that vision. Clarity is more than just knowing your goal. It's about knowing the deeper reason behind it. For example, if your goal is to pay off $10 in debt in 6 months, the deeper reason might be to relieve stress, gain financial freedom, and open doors to new opportunities without the weight of repayment holding you back. Understanding that deeper reason keeps you emotionally connected to your target, making it far harder to abandon the plan when the excitement fades or obstacles appear. Without that emotional connection, goals become tasks, and tasks are much easier to quit. The process of gaining clarity begins with asking precise questions. What exactly do I want to achieve in 6 months? What will success look like in numbers, visuals, and experiences? How will I know when I've arrived at that destination? For many people, these questions are uncomfortable because they force them to admit whether they've been operating with real goals or just wishes. A wish sounds nice, but it doesn't guide action. A clearly defined goal does. If you say you want to get fit, that's too open-ended. But if you say you want to run a 5K without stopping in under 30 minutes, or lose 15 pounds while building muscle definition, suddenly your brain can begin to form a plan. One of the most powerful benefits of clarity is how it influences your daily choices. With a well-defined 6-month goal, every opportunity and distraction can be evaluated against a simple filter. Does this bring me closer to my goal, or does it push me further away? When you're unclear, you say yes to too many things because you don't have a clear standard to measure them against. When you're crystal clear, saying no becomes easier because you're no longer rejecting random opportunities, you're protecting your future. Clarity also allows for reverse engineering your journey. Once you know your exact 6-month target, you can work backward to identify what must be done each month, each week, and each day to get there. This reverse approach creates a roadmap that keeps you from drifting. Without such a roadmap, it's easy to waste the first few months on low-impact activities only to realize you're far from your goal when the deadline approaches. The brain thrives on specifics. Studies in cognitive psychology show that when we create a detailed vision of our goals, including sensory and emotional details, our subconscious mind begins to spot opportunities and solutions that align with that vision. This is why athletes visualize their performance before stepping onto the field and why successful entrepreneurs create vivid business projections before launching their ventures. The clearer the mental picture, the more your actions, both conscious and unconscious, align with making it real. In practice, creating clarity often means writing things down. There's something about transferring your vision from your mind to paper that makes it tangible. A goal written in detail, what you want, why you want it, when you want it, and how you'll measure it, becomes a commitment rather than an idea floating in your head. You can place it somewhere visible to remind yourself daily, reinforcing focus and intention. Clarity is also about setting boundaries within your goal. Knowing what you're not going to focus on is just as important as knowing what you will. If your 6-month goal is to launch an online business, you might decide that during this period, you will not take on unrelated projects or commit to hobbies that eat up your time and energy. These boundaries protect your mental bandwidth, ensuring you're not scattering your focus. Another aspect of clarity is anticipating potential challenges before they happen. A clear goal isn't just about the destination, it's about understanding the terrain. If you want to save a certain amount of money in 6 months, clarity means identifying the habits, expenses, and temptations that could derail you, and creating strategies to handle them before they arise. By anticipating these roadblocks, you reduce the chance of being caught off guard and losing momentum. When you lack clarity, 6 months will pass quickly, leaving you wondering why you're in the same place. But when you start with clarity, those 6 months become a period of precise, intentional action. You'll wake up each day knowing exactly what needs to be done and why it matters. And the more you see your progress aligning with your vision, the more motivated and disciplined you'll become. Clarity turns time from something that happens to you into something you actively shape, ensuring that 6 months from now, you're not just older, you're undeniably better, stronger, and closer to the life you want. Systems over motivation is the mindset shift that separates temporary bursts of effort from lasting success. Motivation feels good. It can light a fire in the beginning, but it is inherently unstable. It comes and goes like the weather, influenced by mood, environment, and even how much sleep you got last night. If your 6-month success plan relies on motivation alone, you will find yourself stuck the moment that emotional high fades. A system, on the other hand, is steady. It doesn't care how you feel, it just works if you follow it. This is why systems are the backbone of consistent progress. A system is simply a structured process designed to make the right actions automatic. Instead of leaving your success up to willpower, you create a set of rules, routines, and environments that push you forward whether you feel inspired or not. Think of it like a conveyor belt. Once you set it in motion, the work gets done step by step. For example, if you are trying to get in shape, a system might be scheduling workouts at the same time every morning, having your workout clothes ready the night before, and having a preset training plan so you don't have to think about what to do each day. These small structural elements remove the decision-making load and make action nearly effortless. Motivation demands that you convince yourself to act each time. Systems remove the need for that internal debate. When your life is set up so that doing the right thing is the easiest option, success becomes less about emotional strength and more about following a process. People often overestimate the power of inspiration and underestimate the power of design. It's not about having endless self-control. It's about building your day so that the best choice is the default choice. A well-designed system also helps eliminate friction, the little obstacles that make action harder. If your goal is to eat healthier, keeping only nutritious food in your kitchen is a system. If you have to drive to the store to buy junk food, you've added friction to the bad habit and reduced friction to the good one. Similarly, if your goal is to write a book, keeping your writing software open and ready on your laptop each morning means you can start instantly without having to set everything up. Over 6 months, these small reductions in friction lead to massive differences in output. Another key aspect of systems is consistency over intensity. Motivation often drives people to start strong and burn out fast. They work hard for 2 weeks, then quit. Systems prioritize steady, sustainable actions. It's better to do something small every day for 6 months than to go all in for a short period and stop. The magic of transformation comes from accumulation, tiny actions repeated hundreds of times. By building a system, you create an environment where those actions happen automatically, making long-term commitment far easier. Systems also protect you from decision fatigue, which is the mental exhaustion that comes from making too many choices in a day. The more decisions you have to make, the more your willpower declines, and the more likely you are to give in to distractions or bad habits. A system decides many of your daily actions so your brain is free to focus on execution instead of constant decision-making. If you've already scheduled your work hours, meal prep, and study sessions, you don't waste energy figuring out when to do them. They simply happen as part of the flow of your day. Tracking and feedback are part of an effective system. While motivation often thrives on emotion, systems thrive on data. If you have a clear process for measuring your actions, whether that's logging workouts, tracking expenses, or noting word counts, you can see exactly how well your system is performing. If something isn't working, you don't abandon the goal, you adjust the system. This mindset keeps you from getting discouraged when things don't go perfectly because you're focused on refining a process rather than chasing a fleeting feeling. One of the overlooked strengths of systems is that they work even when life gets messy. Motivation can vanish the moment stress, fatigue, or unexpected challenges appear. But a system can adapt and keep you moving forward. If your fitness system involves morning workouts and you wake up late one day, you can shift to a quick 15-minute routine instead of skipping it entirely. You don't break the chain, you simply adjust within the structure you've created. This flexibility keeps progress alive even when conditions aren't ideal. Over 6 months, the cumulative effect of a good system is far greater than any initial spark of motivation. The system is what keeps you showing up day after day, week after week, until the actions become part of your identity. You no longer rely on bursts of willpower, you rely on the structure you've built. And that structure, if maintained, will carry you far beyond the original 6 months into a lifetime of results. Systems are the bridge between wanting change and living it, making success less about how you feel in the moment and more about the process you commit to following. Small actions compound. And this is one of the most underestimated forces in personal transformation. When people set a 6-month goal, they often imagine they need to take massive leaps every day to make meaningful progress. That belief is what causes overwhelm, burnout, and eventual abandonment of the goal. The truth is, transformation is not about giant heroic efforts. It's about small, consistent actions that build upon each other over time until the results are undeniable. Just like a drop of water falling on stone can eventually carve a groove, repeated small efforts have a compounding effect that is far greater than most people expect. When you commit to small actions, you remove one of the biggest barriers to progress: resistance. Big goals can feel intimidating. If you tell yourself you have to run 10 kilometers every day or write 5,000 words a week, you may find yourself procrastinating before you even begin. But if the goal is to simply run for 15 minutes or write 300 words, it feels manageable. And once you start, you often find yourself doing more than you planned because momentum kicks in. This is the beauty of small actions. They lower the barrier to entry and make starting easier, which is often the hardest part. The compounding effect comes from consistency. One day of effort, no matter how intense, will not change your life. But repeating that effort, even in small doses, over 180 days will create a transformation so dramatic you may barely recognize yourself. Think of someone learning a new language. If they study for just 20 minutes a day, they might feel like they are making slow progress in the first week. But after 6 months, they will have logged over 60 hours of focused practice, enough to hold conversations, understand grammar, and read basic text. The change happens gradually, but it's unstoppable if you keep going. Small actions also work because they stack. Each time you repeat a behavior, you're not starting from scratch. You're building on the foundation you laid the day before. In fitness, for example, every workout builds muscle fibers that repair and grow stronger over time. In financial goals, every dollar saved adds to the previous day's savings, and as the amount grows, so does your motivation to keep going. In creative work, every small idea captured adds to a growing collection that can be shaped into something much bigger. Over 6 months, these small building blocks form something solid and substantial. Another reason small actions are so powerful is that they create habits, and habits shape identity. If you read 5 pages of a book every night, you begin to see yourself as someone who reads regularly. If you spend 10 minutes meditating each morning, you start to identify as a calm and mindful person. These identity shifts are crucial because they make the actions feel natural rather than forced. Once the action is part of who you are, it no longer feels like effort. It's just what you do. The compounding effect is also fueled by the feedback loop of progress. Small wins achieved daily build confidence. That confidence fuels more action, and more action produces better results, creating a cycle that strengthens itself over time. In the early stages, you might not see huge changes, and that can be discouraging if you expect instant results. But the person who trusts the process and stays committed, even when progress feels invisible, will eventually experience exponential improvement. It's like planting seeds. Nothing seems to happen for weeks, but beneath the soil, roots are forming, and when the growth finally appears above ground, it happens rapidly. A common mistake people make is underestimating the power of these micro commitments because they seem too small to matter. They forget that small actions are not meant to create immediate transformation. They are meant to set in motion a chain reaction that, over time, becomes unstoppable. Missing one big workout might feel like a setback, but missing a habit of doing something small every day is far more damaging because it interrupts the momentum. The goal is not perfection, but consistency. You can always adjust intensity as you go, but you cannot make up for lost consistency without losing valuable compounding time. Small actions also have a psychological advantage. They bypass the brain's fear mechanism. Big, risky changes can trigger anxiety and resistance because they signal uncertainty. Small actions feel safe, so your mind accepts them without putting up much of a fight. This allows you to sneak past your own mental barriers and accumulate progress without triggering burnout or fear. 6 months later, you might look back and realize that you've achieved something that once felt impossible, all because you made it so small that you couldn't fail on any given day. In a 6-month transformation plan, this principle becomes the backbone of success. You identify the smallest meaningful step toward your goal, you commit to doing it daily, and you trust that these steps will compound. Over time, the results will not just add up, they will multiply. The actions that felt small at the beginning will, by the end, have created a momentum so strong that your new life feels inevitable. This is how major transformation is built, not by giant leaps, but by countless small steps taken with unwavering commitment. Measure to improve is a principle that turns vague effort into targeted progress. Without measurement, you are essentially walking blind toward your 6-month goal, hoping you're heading in the right direction. Hope is not a strategy, and without clear data, you can't know if what you're doing is actually working. Tracking your progress transforms your plan from guesswork into a feedback-driven process where every action can be adjusted and improved. It's the difference between driving with a working GPS and wandering without a map. When you measure, you can see exactly where you are, how far you've come, and what adjustments are necessary to stay on track. Measuring progress begins with knowing what to measure. This means identifying the key metrics that directly reflect your goal. If your goal is to lose weight, the metrics might be your body weight, body fat percentage, and strength levels. If you're building a business, you might track revenue, customer growth, and engagement. If you're learning a skill, you might measure hours spent practicing, milestones achieved, or test scores. The wrong measurements can mislead you. So it's important to focus on indicators that truly represent success, not just vanity metrics that make you feel good without driving real results. Measurement provides clarity because it makes progress tangible. When you can see the numbers changing, even slowly, it creates motivation to keep going. This is particularly important in the early stages of a 6-month plan when results may not be immediately visible. For example, someone trying to improve their fitness might not see physical changes in the mirror for weeks, but tracking strength improvements or endurance gains can prove that the effort is paying off. Without that data, they might assume nothing is working and give up too soon. The act of tracking also forces self-awareness. When you measure consistently, you can't ignore patterns. You might discover that certain days of the week are less productive, that specific habits are contributing more to your results than others, or that some actions you thought were helping are actually having little effect. This awareness allows you to make better decisions about where to focus your energy. Over time, you begin to see the direct cause and effect relationship between your actions and your outcomes, which is one of the most powerful motivators for change. Measurement also helps identify problems early. Without it, you might spend months working hard only to realize at the end that you were going in the wrong direction. With regular tracking, you can spot signs of stagnation or regression quickly and adjust your strategy before losing too much time. This makes your 6-month plan more adaptable and resilient. Instead of abandoning your goal when things don't work, you simply refine your approach based on the feedback the measurements give you. There is also a psychological effect that comes with tracking progress. It turns your journey into a game. When you have numbers to beat or milestones to hit, you naturally develop a competitive edge with yourself. This gamification makes the process more engaging, especially on days when motivation is low. Each small improvement becomes a win, and those wins accumulate into long-term success. For example, someone who tracks their daily steps might find themselves walking an extra block just to hit a round number. And over 6 months, that small decision repeated hundreds of times creates a noticeable difference. The method of measuring depends on the goal, but consistency is more important than the tool you use. You could use a simple notebook, a spreadsheet, or a specialized app. It doesn't matter as long as you record data regularly and accurately. Skipping measurements for too long creates gaps that make it harder to see trends and make informed adjustments. In a 6-month plan, even a week without tracking can lead to drift, so it's essential to make measurement part of the routine, just like the actions that drive your progress. It's also important to measure the process, not just the outcome. Many people make the mistake of focusing only on the end result, such as weight lost, income earned, or skills mastered, without tracking the actions that produce those results. But the process is what you directly control. If you focus on consistently meeting your daily and weekly action targets, the outcomes will follow naturally. For instance, if your goal is to write a book, tracking the number of words written each day as a process measurement, and hitting that target consistently is what will ultimately produce the finished manuscript. Over time, measurement builds accountability. When you have records of your progress, you can't lie to yourself about how much effort you've put in. The numbers tell the truth, and that truth can either be a source of pride or a wake-up call. This accountability keeps you honest and committed, especially during moments when excuses start to sound tempting. It also allows you to celebrate progress more meaningfully because you can look back and see the exact path you took to get where you are. In a 6-month transformation journey, measurement is the safeguard against drifting, the motivator during slow periods, and the guide that shows you exactly how to reach your destination. It turns the journey from something vague into a structured, data-driven process that leaves little to chance. The more diligently you track, the more control you have over your progress, and the more likely you are to reach and even surpass the goal you set at the start. Becoming the goal is the final and most profound stage of a 6-month transformation. It's not just about achieving a specific result. It's about evolving into the type of person for whom that result is natural. Many people reach their goals, but then slip back into old habits because their identity never changed. They treated the goal as a finish line rather than a foundation. When you truly become the goal, the habits, mindset, and standards that got you there become part of who you are, making it almost impossible to go back to your old way of living. At the start of a 6-month journey, you may still feel like your goal is something external, a destination far away. You see yourself as someone trying to become fit, trying to be disciplined, trying to be financially secure. But as you progress, every small action you take reinforces a new identity. If you commit to exercising daily, you stop being someone who tries to work out and start seeing yourself as an active, healthy person. If you track your spending and save consistently, you start identifying as a financially responsible person rather than someone who is struggling to manage money. This shift is not just semantic. It rewires the way you think, decide, and act. Identity drives behavior more powerfully than motivation. When your sense of self aligns with your goal, the right actions stop feeling like effort and start feeling natural. A person who identifies as a writer doesn't have to convince themselves to write, they write, because that's what writers do. A person who identifies as fit doesn't skip workouts. They move their body because that's who they are. When you anchor your habits in identity rather than in temporary desire, they become resilient. Even when motivation fades, you'll keep doing what needs to be done because it's part of your self-image. This is why the process of becoming the goal often requires letting go of old labels. If you've always thought of yourself as bad with money, undisciplined, or not athletic, those beliefs will sabotage your progress. You might achieve temporary results, but your subconscious will pull you back to match the identity you've held for years. To truly transform, you must replace those limiting labels with ones that support the life you're building. This doesn't happen overnight. It's the result of consistent action that proves to yourself that you are, in fact, different from who you were before. Another key element in becoming the goal is raising your baseline standards. In the beginning, the behaviors required to reach your goal may feel like a stretch. You have to push yourself to do them. But as your identity shifts, those same behaviors become your new normal. If you've built a 6-month streak of eating balanced meals and exercising, going a week without it will feel uncomfortable, almost wrong. This is when you know you've internalized the change. You're no longer striving to meet a goal. You're simply living your life according to a higher standard. The transformation also extends to your environment and the people you surround yourself with. When you become the goal, you naturally start making choices that support your new identity. You spend more time with people who share your values and habits and less time in situations that threaten to pull you back to your old patterns. You curate your surroundings to align with who you are now, whether that means keeping healthier food in your kitchen, structuring your workspace for productivity, or filling your schedule with activities that reflect your priorities. Becoming the goal also changes the way you approach future challenges. Instead of feeling like you have to start over every time you set a new target, you build on a strong foundation. If you've spent 6 months becoming a disciplined, focused person, that discipline doesn't vanish when you reach the end of your initial goal. It carries into the next one. You've essentially built a personal operating system that makes success repeatable. This is why some people seem to achieve goal after goal without burning out. They aren't reinventing themselves each time. They're building on the identity they've already established. There's a deep sense of pride and fulfillment that comes from this stage of transformation because it's no longer about chasing something outside of yourself. It's about expressing who you are. You no longer need to force yourself into alignment with your goal because the alignment is built in. 6 months of intentional action, self-awareness, and consistency have reshaped your beliefs, habits, and self-image to the point where your success is self-sustaining. When you reach this point, the goal is no longer a separate achievement to maintain. It's simply a reflection of your identity. Your actions match your values, your environment supports your habits, and your future goals feel like natural extensions of who you are. That's when transformation becomes permanent, because it's no longer something you have to hold on to. It's something you've become.